Hey, Judy. Let me get everybody a chance to come in. And I pull up my chat. Close Johnny's. Woo-hoo! Look at all them emojis. We'll let everybody come in, and then we're going to make some fin wax like I did the other night. This is the one I have from the other night that's brown. But I thought we'd try some other things with my little containers aren't here yet. Hi, Christy. So I'm going to let everybody get in. I was going to do 3 different things. I was going to try just straight up magicals, nothing else. I was going to try a little Lindy squirt and magical. This is a flat, so I thought it might give it some more depth. And then I was going to try some of the Jacquard basic dye and a little bit of the Arteza. I have little tins coming. Hi, Kathy. Elemental Designs. Tell me your first name again. I forget. Is it Carmen? Welcome. I think that's right. Carmen. Hi, Jilly. Hi, Johnny. All right. So what I did, let me show you the one I did. I have to find it. This is my, it's a composition notebook. I'll just do a real quick flip through. All right. Welcome, Carmen. And I'm doing it kind of journal artista style. I'm just throwing down stuff in different layers. So this one was some markers and sprays and then gesso. This was marker sprays, gesso, paint, paper, splatters, lots of yummo stuff. Markers, sprays, gesso, paper, stencil work, marker like Posca pens, markers, sprays, gesso, paint, deli paper, jelly printed papers, this one is markers, sprays, gesso, iridescent paints, PBOs, and then Timmy tissue. Hi, Eileen. This one's not done. This is markers, sprays, gesso, paint, and it needs more. Markers, sprays, gesso, paint, jelly printed rice paper, stamping. This one's done. Markers, sprays, gesso, paint, stencil work, done. This one's not done. Markers, sprays, gesso, paper, paint through a stencil, not finished. Markers, sprays, gesso, paint through a stencil. Gesso probably through a stencil. And this one's done. Marker sprays, paint paint through a stencil piece of paper with a reverse print. This is the one I was going to show you. This is marker spray, gesso, rice paper, and the tinted fins. This is Timmy paper that we tinted, and this is the tinted Daddy Vans through a stencil. So I just used a brush like this, one of those soft makeup brushes, and this is my little pot of the tinted Daddy Vans. This was tinted Daddy Vans with Arteza mica powders in like a chocolate brown. I wanted something kind of an espresso brown. So it's kind of a bronzy brown, and I'll hold it up. And it still has the shimmer. And then this just was, I put the wax through a stencil. Okay, and then I think we're going to get to some of the, this is just a gesso layer. This is some of the stuff I did the other day that nobody has really seen. This is Distress Oxide. I forgot my pads, so I took the pads, put them on the table, sprayed them with water, and did layers of the distressed ink. And then I put some tissue. I was having some issues with the coming loose, so I put some tissue over some of the binding. This is same thing, Distress Oxide and tissue, and it's ready for more layers. These are damp from the other day still, from yesterday. Empty, but you can see where the ink comes through, empty. And I'm just using the same deli paper to when I need to protect layers. This will get something later. Empty, empty. Empty. This is gesso. This is what I did today after Kathy Berg. So this is gesso for this today. These are Distressed Oxide and layers of the acrylic ink. So usually what I do is get it really wet, drop the ink on it and smush it. And then I've been using these. I'll get them wet and move it around so I can get kind of a mix. You got to be careful you don't get mud. Hi, CB. And this, you can see this one's really dark because I've been messing with it. And this is India ink is black. The red and the gold are the acrylic inks. And the teal is the Distressed Oxide, which was the last layer I added. And then this one, and some of this is ink that bled through. This is pretty much the same thing. The India ink was the first thing. I got it super wet and let the ink kind of bleed through on 2 or 3 different layers. And then I added layers of this ink, and then I added the Distressed Oxide. Those are today. This is a layer where you can see where the inks kind of came through, and I just have a layer of gesso. This was Distressed Oxide inks and sprays through it and stamping and spray through a stencil. I think it needs more, but I haven't. I think it needs to come back with some white maybe. This was the one I was saying, Kathy Berg, I'd use the same tissue. This was inks and sprays that were pretty faded out. And then I added the tissue, and there's some stamping. And then this was feathers with fin wax. And I'm really not trying to finish any of these. I'm just doing backgrounds. This one was inks and sprays, the squirts probably. The India ink is what I started with, the Bombay. I'm almost out of that. I'm trying to use up stuff I don't use. Then it was some Deco Arts tissue, some stamping. Joycey, if you're here or you watch later, I got the new stamps in from Kawan. It's KWAN on Amazon, and they have pretty good stamp sets. I think they're maybe from AliExpress or Wish, and they buy them and then packages them. So this one was kind of a ledger with some numbers. That was used here. There's kind of a grid. It's kind of hard to see. There's a crackle, and then there's a honeycomb, and then some dots. They're grunge stamps, and there were 4 for $6.99. So that was a really good price. And then I stenciled with cream paint, and there's some stamping on there and some stenciled, like the text. That one's done. It's kind of steampunk. And this one is sprays, the India ink, sewing tissue, Timmy washi tape, rice paper. It's probably not done. I don't know. I haven't decided. More of the same. It's those inks and sprays, the sewing tissue, the washi is not on there. The rice paper, stamping, the sprays and India ink, music paper, and some Deco Arts tissue. I think this one is close to done, but I'm almost tempted to like stencil some dark leaves on there. Sprays, stamp, some stamped tissue. I think this one needs more. I just haven't decided what yet. And they have the shimmer from the spray. This was bleed through on the sprays. Inktense pencil and then sprayed like Lena taught us. Stamped. This one needs more. This is just a page that had bleed through, and I put some Inktense marks with my Inktense pencils. Bleed through. This is all not done. Bleed through. Inks, the black ink and the sprays, and some Inktense pencil. Same thing with some white gesso through a stencil. Sprays, some gesso on it, some Inktense graffiti. Bleed through. I started some marks, but I don't like those, so I'll cover them up probably. Bleed through, some marks with the Inktense, some rice paper scraps. This one's done. This has more of the tinted fin that I made. It's got sprays, the tinted fin, and then the jelly printed paper. So that's kind of what I've been doing in this journal, and I just sort of I've been working back and forth so it doesn't fall apart. So what I'm going to do is I have a piece of glass, and I have a piece of the Timmy tissue, and I have a piece of sewing tissue that we can kind of test on, and then we can also just put it on some of this gessoed page. through a stencil. Oh, and I did get new stencils that I needed to show Joycey too. I got these on Amazon and it was a set of 5. And I don't remember, I want to say I paid around $8. So it's, let me get black paper. It's words and numbers. These are the big tags. Just assorted numbers. That's the one I wanted. This is what the one I was looking for. And then houndstooth, Joycey, houndstooth. Then it came with some steampunk gears and plus signs. So we'll use the numbers one. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Daddy Van Wax, and I have 3 experiments that we're going to do, and I'm just going to scrape some out. I don't have my containers yet. I ordered some containers from Amazon, but they're not here yet today. They haven't delivered. I got little like half-ounce ones. They have different sizes. They're for like lip balm. And I'm just making a small amount. All right. So the first one I thought we would try is just straight up magicals. I want to see something real quick. I was trying to see if I had that little spoon. I have one somewhere, but I don't know where it went. We'll just use the tip of this. So this is Martinez Marigold. So I'm going to just take some of that. And mix it in. Now this won't have a big color change. So I may it may not want to show up on camera. Now they are sheer. If you're this, most likely, like I said, will be relatively sheer. So I'm just tinting it. All right. So let's take, I've just got some on a brush. And this is Timmy paper. And I'm going to do both sides. I'm getting a gold shimmer, but I'm not getting a color on that one. I'm getting a little turquoise from earlier. The turquoise is coming from earlier. But you can see how it makes it sheer. How you can see my hand. The turquoise is from the brush. That did not give it color, but there is gold shimmer. So let's try adding to that a little bit. It's just like when you use the wax, it doesn't take much to dry. It's sort of the next day, especially if you buff it. I didn't have any problems. Like on this one, It's not going to smear and it's dry. I'm picking up a little here where I had it heavier. But if you use the Daddy Vans, yeah, there. I thought I got all that out of there, that turquoise. But you can see how much is still coming out of the brush. And I don't know how you clean your brushes really good with this wax stuff. All right, so let's try adding something. Let's add a little bit of a squirt. This is a Lindy's squirt. It's a gold. Let's add a little of that in there and see if we don't get a little more color. And I don't know, it may not like the liquid at all. Now it's mixing in pretty good. I wasn't sure about the liquids. Okay, so let's try. Let me. Trying to see if that brush, I think that brush has more of that out. So I'm just going to take some of that we mixed. And let's try it. I'm just going to try it right down here. Now for the, yeah, there's not a lot of color on the gold, but I'm getting gold shimmer. But it could just be the color I chose. But it did add gold shimmer to that. Okay, let's try the next one. And every time I go, I get more into that. I'm getting more and more of that previous out of my brush. We need Rosemary to tell us the salt. The water just gets that first layer off your brush. All right, let's try the basic dye. This is purple. And this is Jacquard. And I was hoping that this would give me some more color. There's no shimmer in it. There's just color. And then I want to add, because I want shimmer in mine, I'm going to add some Arteza. Because I want a little mica. I want a little shimmer. And that was Iris Purple. Now you're not going to get like a very solid opaque like the fins. We can try. We can try a metallic paint, but then you lose the, if you want to make the tissue opaque. Okay, so this is a purple, and I'm definitely getting the purple tint on this one. Okay, I think, let me hold it up on the white. I think there's a definite purple on that one. Can you see how it's going to look a little more blue on your camera maybe? And let's try that purple through a stencil. I will say it worked better with just the Arteza pigments. But I have a lot of wax on this brush now. You're not going to get a dark pigment. And see, I had so much there on my, I had too much on my brush. Let's see what it does on the sewing tissue. And I'm going to blot where that was. Here it's real heavy. And probably what I'll do is just blend it out, because I've got it way too heavy. And that's on a gessoed surface. It would absorb better on just regular paper. And it did make the tissue sheer. Can you see how you can see the crosses and the purple, but not as well down here? Now, when this gets wet, it would go more sheer anyways, but some tissues don't go very sheer. No, I have not. We can try that. We can try that in just a minute. We'll try some alcohol ink in this one because it's so light. All right, we'll try that. This is brass. This is Pinata brass. Now the thing about the alcohol inks is it is a liquid, so you're going to get more. I might have gotten some metal flakes. Let's try that. Let's try that through a stencil. It did give it a little more color. But it is way more liquid. And you don't need a lot of that wax. I'm just cleaning off the back of the stencil. Let's try it on the Timmy tissue. It is a little darker as far as the tint goes than the original golds that we got. Let's try a flat magical. This is a denim blue. I'm going to pull some of this wax to the side. This is a more intense Lindy's color. It's going to look black. And then I thought, let's clean this. I'm trying to get some of that purple out of there. The water is helping. If you had a bunch of those daubers, it would probably help. I'm just trying to get that purple out of there. The purple's pretty heavy on the paper. If you just had absorbed, this would be a lot darker if I was on regular paper. So let's turn the journal page. Because I have paper. I have paper without any gesso. Let's try. All right, let's try some of that navy. It's still got that purple. But it did darken that purple. The flat is darker. It's navy now. The flat magicals work really good. Something with more color. But you can see how it's still, so that was tinted navy. It's kind of a bluish purple. There might be some purple still in here. Because this is pretty, it goes a little goes a long way. Like I would barely put any, this is the brush I use a lot of times on the Daddy Vans. Let's put some on the, so if you don't pick up as much, you won't have as much color on it. And that's on that craft. But you can definitely see how it goes translucent. But it's not, it does tint it. I mean, there is a purple tint on there. You can see that kind of peachy color. Let's try just alcohol ink. Or do we want to try some paint? Do we want to try another one with alcohol, or we want to try another one with a little bit of paint? I was leaning towards some paint. Okay, we can. You know what? Let's add gold paint to this, and we'll just add alcohol to that in a different color. Okay, this is Arteza Gold, and it is a metallic. So I'm just going to put some right there. Let's see if we get more of a fin-like wax. Hi, Jersey. I don't know if you heard me say the other day, your package is at the post office, Jersey. So when you go, it should be there, but it showed that it was delivered. Okay. Okay, let's put it. Well, it's definitely got more gold with the paint. It's still sheer. That little bit of paint did not do bad. That's the, oh, I tore it. This tissue. That was my fault. I'll still use it. So let me move this and hold it up. That's the closest to a gold. It's going to be hard to show on the camera. If I flash it, can you see how there's gold? All right, let's try an alcohol. And I'm going to just get the Marabou. Okay, I've got a purple. I've got a gold. Let's go with... This is like a cherry red. If this doesn't tint it much, I do have a red in the Jacquard dye too. And you can see how much is in that brush. Watch when I get it wet. Oh, that was still in there in the brush. It's probably in the water activating the magicals that are in the wax, would be my guess. All right, so I may have to get a different brush. Okay. So there's just, I'm just going to use my hand. Yeah, that's very sheer with the alcohol ink. It's not a lot of pigment. Let's try the dye. So I would say that the alcohol ink isn't really very effective by itself. This is red pigment. It's basic dye from Jacquard. Okay, let's try. I'm going to put some of that right there. And let's use this brush. Not as much pigment. It's very subtle, but it's there. It's kind of a pink. Let me hold it up where you can see it. It's kind of a pink. It gives it kind of a rosy pink. It's very sheer. It's not a lot of color. So you're tinting the wax, but I would say if you're going to get more opacity, then you probably need to use a paint. Let's try a red paint to that mixture. This is Coquino Red. If you're wanting something with more, I've got a hair from the brush in there. If you want something more opaque, more like the fins, then I think you want to use paint. Not to make the tissue translucent, but if you're wanting something, now that was not a metallic paint. There's a little metallic from before. There's some shimmer from before. Now, if I'd used a metallic, I think I could have gotten a more. Let's try. I bet you there's a pearl red. Here's a red that's got a pearl. Or it's pink tulip, but it looks red. That's going to make it go more pink on the pink side, but I don't care. That dye from the jacquard is still in there. Okay. I'm going to get a different brush. So if you want a darker color, you definitely want to use paint. I'll do the corner of the Timmy tissue. And when I do the Timmy tissue, I do under the top and the, I do both the top and the bottom. Okay, so that definitely got a darker red tint. The tissue is still sheer, but it is not, it's still sheer. It is not as sheer as when you went with just the pigments. So in my opinion, the alcohol ink, don't bother. It's too much liquid anyways. The paint and the micas, The mica pigments in the paint did the best. And what I'll do is I'll put these in a tin and use them throughout. Now, if you're just using the mica pigments, you'll get a very sheer. If you add a little paint, you'll get more opaque. For the cost of the magicals, I don't think that the magicals were enough bang for the buck. So I don't think I would use my magicals. I got more on the magicals on the paper towel because when I went to clean my brush, it reactivated some of the magicals. So I would definitely say, now I'm getting some of the dye too. And I don't think that this had enough pigment to be worth the money either, if you don't already own them. If you own them, fine. But I don't think. I think that the best choice is just pigments and paint. Now, there are other brands of pigments that people buy, but a lot of us have the Arteza pigment. So if I wanted more opacity, then I would use paint. If I want it to be just a little bit of color and sheer, then I would just use the pigments. And so this I will scrape into those little tins that I bought so that I can use it over and over. So like this was the brown one that no, that's Magicals. This was the brown one that I made the other day. And what I'll do is I'll take my little pots that are coming and I'll put the gold and the red and the purple in those pots. You could try just the paint itself. Give me just a second. That's what I'm saying. You could just use the paint. If you want shimmer, use just a shimmer paint. I'm trying to get it something clean. All right, I wanted a navy blue, and I don't have a lot of it, so I'm just going to get some more of the Daddy Vans wax. Might work with Vaseline and be a little thinner, or another furniture polish. Okay, we want just paint. I want mine to shimmer, so I'm going to get a paint that shimmers. This is Pearl Sapphire Blue. And this is no pigments, just paint. Okay. All right, those are... I'm putting those brushes in to soak. All right, here's just a little brush, but I think it'll work. Okay, let's try. Yeah, it stains the tissue. I don't have so much paint that it's not opaque. Now that's what came off the top of the tissue. right, so let me. Not as much shimmer. If you want a lot of shimmer, you want the mica pigments. I will say that. If you want that shimmer, there's a little purple because there was probably some. No, that brush was. It's still a blue. It's right there's the blue. Now through a stencil, you might as well just use paint. In my opinion, for what you're, But to tint your tissue is what I would use it for. So here's the sewing tissue. And you can see there's a blue tint on the sewing tissue. Yep, mixing everything in Daddy Vans. So, like I said, I wouldn't necessarily make it to use on the page. I would make it to use on tissue that I want it to make go translucent. So if we take this, it's already torn. Let me get it wet. It does not tear as easy as other tissue. In my opinion, it has a very strong grain, Timmy tissue. But if you get it wet and you let it soak for a minute, then you can tear it. Now, I didn't move it off the page, so I got stuff off my page. But see, if you don't use water, it just wants to tear on a single line. It has a grain. This paper definitely has a grain. So let's go ahead and move those. I'll go ahead and add I'm looking for a page we can add that to. We'll just add it here. All right. I'm just going to cut it a smaller piece. And I'm just going to glue it on. With some gel medium. Now it will smear because it's not really dry. Because I went over the top. But the other page I had from the other day, you can't feel it at all in the places that it was lighter weight. Put some more on this side. And I've probably used more wax on this than you would normally want to use. And I didn't have a pattern under here to see. I just had, let me move this because this is gonna get in the way. So you can see probably the notebook lines underneath it. That's dry now. This is still tacky. I tore it right here because I touched it with that gift card. But let me dry it real quick. So these were the pigments, no paint, and this was with the paint. So you can see it's a lot more intense. This was the pigment, the Jacquard's pigment, and a little mica powder. The mica powders are more subtle. I'll put this last one on here. And this one was just like the pigments, no paint. The magicals. I've got a little bit of movement there off the edge on that one. Let me dry that one. Yeah, and those are a different paper than these are. So let's try something real quick. Let's try tissue from Joggles. And it's got a white background. So it's just this is a tissue from, it's the same one Kathy used this morning. And this is a pink tissue with floral print. Let's see what happens. And I'm just going to use the red and the blue one. I'm just going to use the blue one because I think that's what's on this brush. I'm going to do the back first. Not the best brush right now, actually. I don't have time for that. Get the bigger brush. Okay, so this is the blue. Had the paint and this just had the paint. Okay. So it did not, this paint, it is sheer compared to what it was. It did not go as sheer. But you can see my hand through it. Where you can't see my hand through it. Look at that. So you can't see my hand through it. Now you can see my hand through it. So it definitely did make it go translucent. And that's just Joggles tissue paper. So let's try, this is just a different piece I got in my order. I don't know that I would use blue. That's not necessarily probably the color you might want to change the background to. I would think probably the brown would make it go more vintage, possibly. I don't know. This is going to make it go into a different purple because you're still going to see that. I'm going to turn it over and do the back. And I'm just kind of trying to get a sheer layer of the wax, not a big greasy layer. Okay, and you can definitely see my finger through it. And I'm just using a paper towel to clean it up. So I would definitely say the mica powders and the paint are the best for tinting it. I wouldn't make a whole lot of a color. It doesn't go as opaque. I mean, it's not going to replace your fins. It's just not, because your fins is more opaque. And more metallic. I mean, Now, if you put mica powder in this, you'll get more shimmer. That's the fins on it. Now, I don't think the fins will make it go translucent. Let's try fins. You might. I do see a grease stain. It did not go as opaque, but I didn't put it on the back as much. It went a little transparent, but it didn't go as transparent. But if I added mica powder to this, I'll get quite a bit of shimmer. Bye, CB. See, I like this shimmer. I don't like the matte ones. I don't know, Jilly. Dorlins or Dorlins wax. It's a furniture wax. Daddy Vans. Now they sell tinted. This is unscented beeswax furniture polish. And that's all it says as far as chemicals listed on here. Natural, non-toxic, chemical-free ingredients. Beeswax, canuba wax, and olive oil. So that's what's in Daddy Vans. So you're looking for that combination. If you were trying to find a wax furniture polish, would I stamp on the back of the wax paper? What paper? I have plain Timmy paper. Do you want me to I have plain Timmy paper, no print. I have this, Eileen. Okay. The paper that I waxed, this paper. Stamp on the back of this. The Timmy, this paper. In a minute, I'll put in the chat what's in this, and you can look for one that's something similar. Okay. All right, black ink. Doesn't matter what I stamp on it, right, Eileen? You just want to see. Can I stamp crackles? Okay. It's a brand new stamp, so let me real quick. Let me. Okay, yeah. I just want to stamp something. See why you need to move your stuff? I gotta move those waxes. Because otherwise I'm just gonna get messes like that. Okay. I'm turning to a white page. Okay. There's the back side. Let me try a different wax. I mean, a different ink pad. I have a let's try this one. Because this is way more black in the ink department. This is the Versafine Black. All right, so there's the back where it's stamped. It's hard. There it is through white. Can you sort of? I can see it. I don't know if the camera will pick it up. Can you see it, Eileen? Let's do this. Let's take kill the black Sharpie there. All right. I'm going to glue down that paper over that Sharpie. Now there are places where you can't see it, the Sharpie, because the paper has a print of the darker feathers. All right, and then let's we'll glue this one down here. Ooh, we'll have to cover this up with something because it is schizophrenic. I'm just trying to get it to glue down. And then let's dry it and I'll show you. Yeah, it's not going to replace the fins at all. But I'll show you. How I'll probably use it. So you can see that stamp. You can see that writing in the background. On this feather paper, the places you can't see it, it's where the feather's a little darker in color. And you can see it on this one. But here's how I'll probably use the tinted Daddy Vans, which I already have. I didn't buy it for that reason. I bought it because I wanted the first idea was to like, okay, can we make something like fins more affordable? I don't think it's opaque enough to compete with fins, but I use regular white tissue like this. This is just regular gift tissue that I've stamped. And I like to use it to collage, but it doesn't always go as clear as I want it. So I will probably use it more in this manner, which is why the first color I made was a brown. Okay. So this is the one I made with the brown mica. This is probably more how I will use this. But you got to be really careful because I'm rushing. You have to have way more of a gentle touch. I like that I can tint just regular white tissue that I've stamped. That's probably more in keeping with how I'll use it. I was looking for a specific page, thinking something. I'll just put it here. Because this tissue doesn't always go clear. And I don't like when that's why I don't like deli paper. In fact, let's stamp a piece of clean deli paper. But see, this has wax. This is waxy. This feels waxy. That's why I don't like, I don't have any of the, this has been through the mill. Okay. going to have, it's not quite dry yet. So I'm just going to set it down. I'm going to do the back first. Still don't think that's dry, that ink. See how it went a little more translucent, but it stained it. And I didn't even do the front. Way too much. I think I would do my paper and then stamp it, because I put too much on there. Because so the paper's definitely, the deli's gone more translucent. Let's try stamping it again. I said I don't collage with deli paper. I collage with tissue. Okay, that ink is still wet. But if you had Daddy Vans and you already had pigment waxes, I don't think it's anything I would go out and buy, but I wouldn't buy tinted Daddy Vans. Like I said, that is not dry yet, so I don't want to touch the... Okay. So there's the art tissue. And you can definitely see the, and I had a lighter touch. I have way less pigment on it, but you can see some of the paint behind it. You can see the lines. Here is the deli, and I just colored the deli essentially and then stamped on it. I just tinted the deli and then stamped on it, but I can still see the lines. It's hard to show on the camera. I can see the lines of the notebook paper behind here. So I would use it to maybe tint deli paper and then stamp on it, possibly, because I can see underneath the layers. But what I'll really do is use it on tissue, because that's what I tend to use, is stamped, just regular tissue, like gift tissue, not art tissue, nothing expensive. the really cheap stuff. And mostly I'll probably use that more of that brown color. Here's the original Timmy's that I tinted, and you can see the shimmer on it. And that was just tinted with mica powder. This is the Joggles tissue with a print, and you can see the stamping behind it and the Sharpie. This was also the Joggles paper with the stamping and the writing behind it. This one's darker, so it's a little hard. I can see the crackle really well. Hi, Linda. You can go through a stencil. I don't know that it's worth it. It's very light. This is the art tissue. This is the deli. This needs to be glued better. It did work on the sewing tissue. This is like a purple color. But you're already starting on a piece of tinted. I'm just getting some of that brown on there. This is not a very good piece. You could stamp on this. Once you had it sheer, you could definitely stamp on this, because you can see the other sewing pattern paper through it. So you can see, can you see the red through that? It makes it sheer, but it gives it a color. It's not, and it's got some shimmer. I'll put it down right here, and then we'll see. Because you've got black, you've got some orange, you've got some turquoise that I wrote. Let's stamp back there. Okay, there's some stamped black. All right, let's hit that on the top. And then I'll hold it up closer to the camera in a minute. Let me dry just a little bit. And then we'll see what we see. Yeah. So you can see where I stamped behind. You can see my turquoise lines. You can see my black ink, but it has a dark brown tint. Now, if I'd used one of the other colors, it would have, because this already has a craft color. So that's how I will probably use it. Well, I won't make, I'm not going to make like tons of it by any means. I don't think it replaces the fin. I just liked it as a way to tint the daddy vans and to make tissue, because sometimes I have big pieces of this sewing tissue that has nothing written on it. And I like that I could stamp on the paper and I can see that below. I can see the layers below. It's not as clear on my camera, I don't think. It's hard to see. Yeah, I found a site with the Gampi paper, a bunch of different, if you just search and say shop, some of them come from overseas, so it might be harder to get right now. So that's kind of the experiment and where I'm at with the pages in the journal that I'm doing. So I'll just do another real quick flip through. It's mostly I spray. The first set of pages was marker, spray, gesso, and then layers. So this has those 3 layers, then paint and scrapbook paper. Those 3 layers, paint, stencil work, painted pens, jelly printed papers. Those first 3 layers, paint, jelly print, and jelly printed papers. I loved how this turned. This was a failed jelly print that I stenciled in. And it turned out so, and it's got the gold from the plate. This is the first 3 layers, metallic paint and Timmy tissue with daddy vans, regular. That's just the first 3 layers plus paint, not done. First 3 layers, paint, jelly printed rice paper, stamping. First 3 layers. The first 3 layers again are always some markers I did, some sprays and gesso on these first pages. And then there's paint, and then there's stencil work and stamping, splots. First 3 layers, paper and some paint, not done. Yeah, the one with the ferns. I have those ferns. I have this paper in its entirety digital. It's in one of my digital sets with the whole paper not torn up, the original. Yeah, I'm just doing backgrounds so people could use them to finish. First 3 layers, paint and stencil work and splots. First 3 layers and then black paint and then a piece of paper done in the reverse. First 3 layers. Then this is jelly printed rice paper, tinted Daddy Van tissue, tinted Daddy Van wax through a stencil. This is what we did tonight. Going to have to be a lot of covering up there. This is Oxides. You put it on your table, spray it, and then dip. I'll show you how I've been doing those because forget I had those and I'm using them up. No gesso. So I'm just taking a couple colors that I like together that won't make mud. Not mixing my pads up. So that was Wild Honey and Peacock Feather. Water on the table. I like the dots. And then I am just touching down in different places. Sometimes I'll drag it. Usually I'll close the page to get it on both sides. And then I'll just keep building the layers. And that's what I did with this one. And then I put sewing tissue on top. This one is just the distressed pads and tissue. That's the bleed through. That's how wet it gets. That's some of the wax we made tonight. And it'll soak in there and dry. And some of it will come off on the other page, which I don't care. That's some of the rub-offs we did. This is just ink. Bleed through that we, the distressed oxide that we just did. Then today, this is the other thing I've been doing in the journal, is I'll show you. This has gesso, but I'm going to put a piece of deli paper back here and get that really wet. Get that really wet. And then I'm going to put deli paper back here and get that really wet. All right, Bombay ink. Water. Let it do its thing. Close that and just push. That's how I've been getting those big black areas, because I'm trying to get like light and dark. And sometimes when it's wet, I fold up or push over. Okay, so put that up. Let's go to, we'll go bright. All right, water again. This is the acrylic inks. That was Azo Orange. Put some more water. This is Primary Magenta. I don't want that. I want this red. Pyrrole Red. Okay. Then I'm closing and pushing. I'm just trying to use up stuff I have and see how some of this, okay, now this is the other thing I've been doing, which I kind of discovered today. Get a whole piece. So piece of this dirty deli. And I got that red over there. So I'll put some water on it. And I'm using this deli paper. To move some of it. Because it'll get on this waxy. I discovered it with the India ink. And then I might like put it over here. See, that's got some ink on it. Put that back in there. Grab another piece. And I'll just pick up pieces here and there. And then so let's try another color. This is Naples yellow. This is a blue gray. And I just kind of let it make a mess. Water. I'm going to smush that. All right, so then I'll probably move some of that here and there. And it's very Rorschach at the beginning. But by the time I cover it up with layers, and this is all getting painty, so eventually I'll use it probably. And then if I want to, I can dry it. This is not a heat gun. This is what I use for alcohol ink. It has a brush attachment. It's for drying your hair and curling it. And every once in a while, if I want to dry layers, I'll dry layers before I do the next one. And then the next thing I'm doing is like adding spray, or tonight I added oxides to this. Thank you. This was not my idea. Someone in the alcohol world was making the roses, so I bought it because it's more air, but it has a cold, but it's a lot of air, so it dries fast, but it doesn't get super hot. And it costs like $25, $26. All right, so put those up. And I haven't used these. I bought them on sale, so I'm just trying to use up things that you forget you have. So let's try adding, let's add blue to this. Salty Ocean. And we're going to throw in some distressed, not Oxide. This is just the ink, same color, not Oxide. It's just a mini. I'm just trying to get kind of those white areas. You could use sprays if you had sprays. All right, that's all saturated. I'm gonna add some of the extra. Like, I don't want to waste any of it, and I'm getting red on my table, but like, I don't care. Let's go with Fire Brick. That does not look like Fire Brick. That looks like the purple. How much you want to bet I've switched the lids? That's purple and this is red. The lids were switched. And let's put that on. Luckily, that's going to kind of, I didn't really like that a lot. So let's go to, we'll put that on here because there's not a lot on there. And it's just going to be a big red layer right now. But these will come back up when I get it wet again in different layers. And then I just let it dry. So see how that turquoise is coming through the back of there. Smack and dragging, swishing. Let's. All right, let me show you this up close real quick. I want tissue here so that I don't want the pages to stick together. So you can see what the Distressed Oxide does is it gives that acrylic paint a cloudy look. To me, it's kind of almost would be a cool way to make a galaxy. Drag. And I don't mind this. Now, the reason why I put the paper is like this has gesso and I don't want to, at this point, I'm not, this is done the same way earlier today. This is the acrylics and then this is the acrylics and the oxide. And the oxide is mostly on the edges on this one. This is acrylics and the oxide, and then this was just gesso. This is like, again, gonna need a lot of work. But I want it to protect. I didn't want this to get damaged. So that's why I put that layer. When I started, that's why I decided where I want it to work. And that's why I put that layer of the deli paper so that I was just working with these. And then when it's real wet, I'm leaving the deli paper in there. And then I can come back. Now, one of the things I will probably do, the next thing I'll probably do is stamp on these. Sometimes I like stamping on them when they're wet. So this is that crackle stamp. Let's go ahead and just put some crackle. This is going to get acrylic paint and more sprays. So I'm not really thinking a whole lot. I'm just adding. So that added some cool texture. On top of those paints. So the next thing I would probably do on this one is I would probably pick a big stencil out and come in with white gesso so that, and the white won't be always real white. Some of that stain will come up through the white, and probably put a pattern and let some of that come up through it would be my next step, most likely, that I would Now, if you do use the waterproof, like some of these, some of this will come off if it gets wet, but I don't care. If you want it to make sure that it doesn't, you want it real clean, then use new pieces. Let's see. Looking at Joan's stencils. I'm going to use this one. I'm having a hard time finding a stencil. I don't want too much white. Let's just use this Stamperia stencil. And I'll just do some areas in it. Because probably paint will come too. And I'm just using white gesso and a sponge. So I kind of like that because you're still seeing the colors and you're still going to see the crackle. I'm going to flip it. And use the other side to make a so I could just sort of keep, and then like it might be paint later. Usually I'll mishmash another stencil. I don't usually use one. This is a Stamperia stencil. Yeah, really neat. The other one I use a whole lot is I have been using this Stencil Girl stencil. Mark making stencils work really well. I like the numbers, which is why I bought this stencil. So let's go ahead and add. And this is damp, so it is soaking up the, I mean, you can wait till it's dry. But it's not going to look super white. Unless I let it dry, and but even then the inks will come up, the oxides, not the acrylics. Your acrylics will not come up, and the black Bombay will not come up, but if you use any of the, so see how I like that. And I'll just kind of keep working with the stencil. And then maybe some of these little X's here. Fill in with a few more down here. I think I'm going to use the numbers on this stencil. And I'll just keep building. This is gesso. It's just gesso and a makeup sponge. And then I'm going to use this part right here. I'm not worried too much where the white is because I'll add something. I'll add a paper. I'll add a layer of paint. Because the white gesso is not really. And then I want a little circle right here. And I'm going to put it on the other side and match it up because I want to. And then I think I'll go back to the little X's up here. And let's go back to this stencil. And put it in here. In the circles again. I have a horoscope stencil coming from Poland. Well, actually I have 6 stencils that I ordered from 13 Arts. I was telling Eileen, Shauna couldn't find a U.S. representative. I think that some other companies used to sell it, but I don't know if they do anymore. I couldn't find any online, but the shipping was only like $6.70. I got 6 stencils. My order was $28, and then it was discounted down to like 27 something, and the shipping was $6.80. That is so weird that was my air compressor. So I'll leave that right there because I like that. And then I'll think about it and decide where I want to go or what I want to do with it next. Sometimes if I let the gesso dry, I will spray it and tint the gesso. I'll show you. One of these has tinted gesso on it that I just did. This was white gesso, but I didn't like the white. Well, it was a cream paint. Actually, I don't think it was white gesso. So I sprayed it with a Lindy's and knocked it down so it had a little bit of a turquoise. Yeah, I didn't see it when I was looking, Eileen, but I didn't go to their website. But when I was looking, but I ordered 6. They were $5 each. And shipping from Poland was $6.80. You order it and you don't know what your shipping is, and then she sends you an invoice for your shipping. So that's kind of what I've been doing in this journal. If I think that the seam is like, if I think that this is going to tear out, then what I've been doing is taking tissue and putting it across the seam. Those layers will get covered up, but that just gives some more oomph. But by the time they get paint on them, but I had one that was like seriously going to tear out. But I'm not pulling on it a whole lot. This has gesso. Sometimes I'm using gesso, sometimes I'm not. This looks like an abstract butterfly to me. Yes, I got this one. I got from Nikki. Yes, this one I got from Nikki. And one other. And then I got 2 from Zandra. The other thing that works really good in the center binding, if it's starting to get weak, is printed rice paper. So I'll show you. I think I have a page. So this is jelly printed rice paper. I could use, like, I might use a piece on here. Kind of down the middle like this. And then, well, let's go ahead and put it. And then I'll take some of the other pieces and put them on there somewhere. And then I'll add more paint, if that makes sense. I'm not adding paper to all of them just to add paper, but more if I think to reinforce the journal. And like I said, this is one that I had sitting aside that was going to go somewhere. I just didn't know where. And then I'll trim it at the top later. So I want more of this. I want more of this golden color on there, I think. Now, if another thing you can do is if I don't put any gel medium on the top of this, I can get it to take watercolor or a stain. So I have done that too. So here's a watercolor brush. This is Dr. Pepper. It's kind of a burgundy red. It's one of mine. It's got shimmer. Because I can make that go more translucent or less white by doing that. And this has gel medium on the top, but it's not dry. Okay, that's a good brush, so really want to clean that brush out. Make sure there's nothing bad in it. And then I want one more piece. Probably over here. Because and these are acrylic paints that are on here, so they're not moving. On the background on this one, this is just those acrylic. If it were the Distress Oxide, it would move. All right, let's get, I want to get a different brush because I've just got a bigger brush. This is the watercolor. And then close it. So that's kind of how I'm doing the journal. Let's see. Let's add, I have white gesso here. Let's not waste it. Let's add some steampunk gears. I do it like a double page just because that's, but they don't have to be. All right. I'm just getting some pattern in here with this extra gesso. And I think I'll come up here. And then right here. And then I'm just about out of gesso. So that works perfect. So I'll just keep building layers on them. And I'll go back and forth between pages, which is why I have like 20 zillion. Pieces of dirty deli paper. And I'll just, if you know, it's something, I'll see something in my stash. I'll let it dry, come back to it, think about it. Yeah, Amazon has, but they weren't shipping a lot of that stuff. But now they are more. This I'll put aside because I'll use it on another project. But that's my latest obsession. And I've been making digital backgrounds to sell on Etsy. So I'll just leave that like that. Usually set something on it. Let it dry. Let it sit with the wax paper. And when it's all done, I'll probably come back and turn, like, I think I may come back and put like quotes for each page somewhere when I'm all done with the whole journal, is I think my plan. And I'll probably do the cover at some point. But it was really about playing with paints and playing with my stuff. Paula got me started. I did like this last night. Close your eyes, Eileen. So I took an ink tint and did a doodle pattern. That's all I used it for. And then I got it wet. It's going to bleed a little. But then it'll set. So it was an easy way to add some doodle in the background, because it's easier to doodle with a pencil but you could also use Neo 2s. I have James. That's what these are out for. But I'm going to get a bigger area if I use those. I'm going to get more spread. Let's see, I'm just trying to find a page that we could add some doodles back here where we put ink. Let's add some doodles in here. That was a James crayon, but they're going to bleed a lot more and move more than the ink tints. The ink tints will hardly move, but like that James will move easily. But there'll probably be some little imprint of it that stays, but it moves way more. But the ink tints pencil doesn't, once you're done, it doesn't move. The golden brand of, oh, absorbent ground. Yeah, I have the Liquitex. Don't like it. And I want to say Shauna bought the Core or the Daniel Smith and wasn't as wild about it. So basically, that's what I'm doing at night and just letting it kind of sit just so it's not as fluffy. And then I'll come back and add some more. So every day I add some more layers. And I may finish a page. I may not finish a page. And I've just been kind of going through the art room and getting out things that I want to use. So I wasn't using these. So I got them out and put them out to use. Because so first I was using a lot of sprays. I got these out so I could use them. I'm going to use some of the paint markers that we bought. However, they don't go over the slick paint very well, but they do go over the craft. So I think they'll go over the dried. I think they'll go over these that are dried just fine. So I'll probably add some doodling with these on some of them. I didn't buy them. They were gifted to me. They're really hard. I don't like them, Eileen. That's probably why they were gifted to me. They're really a hard wax. I like the Neo 2s. That was wax paper. Let's try a piece of real paper. Just copy paper. I'm not a big, I don't actually don't think I own. I mean, they're not permanent. They're not supposed to be permanent. There is, I mean, they move and there is a stain of the original. I mean, they're not ever going to be permanent. But, you know my opinion. If you have Neo 2s, I don't know that you need anything else. And I just have a little set of Neo 2s. And I don't use them as often. I have this set of 15 plus the Flesh skin tone. I don't use them as often. I don't find a whole lot of use for them. I don't, not doing fussy. I know like a lot of people take their brush and go from the bottom and color in and tint. So that's probably it for me because Bobby is going to fix steak. So I got to tell him to start the grill, fire up the steak. All right, guys. Good night. I'll see you later. Tuesday night's going to be my regular night, I'm pretty sure. All right. Bye, guys.